Coomaraswamy was a pioneering historian and philosopher of Indian art, particularly art history, symbolism, and early interpreter of Indian culture to the West. He was one of the great art historians of the 20th century whose multifaceted writing deal primarily with visual art, aesthetics, literature, and language, folklore, mythology, religion, and metaphysics. Along with other René Guénon and Fritz Schumann, they are the real traditionalist and perennialist. But if we can say in the Indian terms, Sanatan Dharma, and Coomaraswamy believed that in traditional societies, unlike modern ones, there is no distinction between the fine arts and other art, like decorative art, useful art, handicraft, etc. No distinction between religious and secular art. This thing I have discussed in 2015 in the B.R. Mani Facilitation volume also. Today we have scholar Dr. Bipul Tiwari, who has recently completed his doctoral research from BHU on Coomaraswamy, the perception of Indian art. It is novel and holistic approach to Coomaraswamy's multidimensional work. With his critical approach and sense of justice, Dr. Tiwari has able to silence the critics of Coomaraswamy. He is the member of several committees, and he is in the advisory board of the Sodh Yatra. It's international research journal published by Sodh Sansthan, Gwalior. Life member of Indian Council of Astrological Science, Chennai. His recent publications are revisiting A.K. Coomaraswamy's contribution to the study of Indian art and Sri Lankan art, published in the Journal of Center for Heritage Study, University of Kalyan, Sri Lanka, 2019. Reflection on the personal letters of Coomaraswamy, an art history, historiographical perspective, and the region of dialectic in the approach of Cunningham, an art historiographical perspective. Dr. Tiwari's book on Alexander Cunningham and the art heritage of India are in publication. It's in press.
Coomaraswamy is a well-known art historian and art critic of Indian art. Naming the scholars who shaped the course of Indian art in 20th century, many will be called and 100 will be chosen. But Coomaraswamy must have such list because of his pioneer achievements. He systematically applied the interdisciplinary approach and correlated the study of Indian art to philology, philosophy, anthropology, mythology, theology, history, culture, and other disciplines. Being a versatile scholar, his contribution enriched major fields of Indian art such as iconography, painting, architecture, aesthetics, etc. In order to have a proper and holistic understanding of Coomaraswamy's contribution to Indian art, one should try to trace the dialectic and hermeneutical inquiry concerning the historiography of Indian art chronologically. The present lecture consists of few sections to facilitate the exposition of his contribution. Life and achievements, 18th and 19th century scenario of Indian art, early decades of 20th century, his works and contribution to Indian art, and conclusive remarks. His works and contribution to Indian art. Being an idealist, Coomaraswamy was totally realistic in his assessment of Eastern and Western values. He writes truly that the notion of common humanity is not enough for peace. What is needed is our common divinity. In his address on the Renaissance of Indian culture, given at Harvard on August 15, 1947, he says, "Our problem is not so much of the rebirth of Indian culture as it is one of preserving what remains of it. This culture is valid for us not so much because it is Indian as it is a culture." This reflects his true instinct of scholarship and his love for India. Coomaraswamy's works highlights the significance of Philosophia Perennis, which was the lingua franca of all cultures before the confusion of tongue arises, and remind us to turn to the traditional authority of our age in order to get these metaphysical bearings. Coomaraswamy's works are pathfinder. They draw attention to the unity and wholesomeness of life behind manifestation and process. Cutting across sectarian concerns, religious dogma, and conventional current of the spiritual East and the material West, were highly responsible for laying the foundation of a new approach to Indian art and Asian art. His work is a contemporary relevance and validity for the East and the West. Kumaraswamy is a universalist in that he understood and believed totally in the transcendent unity of religions. He discovered in art a door on to the universals and formed a maturing interest in art as illustrative of ideas. In the fields of art and culture, metaphysics, and comparative religion, works of Kumaraswamy are highly significant. He set the model for the study of Indian art in its totality. Kumaraswamy perceived the object of art in its metaphysical, poetic, literature, aesthetic, religion, and social synthesis. His critical approach is determined by the rigorous historical perception and creative sensibility. His understanding and interpretation of Indian art are unforgettable. While he clearly recognized the influence from the West Asia, especially Mesopotamia and Iran, and from Greek on Indian art forms, he firmly held that the ancient Indian art had roots in Indian soil and was nurtured in Indian culture and physics, and foreign winds of cultural influence never uprooted the growing tree of Indian art. The medieval scenarios art, his first outstanding work, is testimony not only to Kumaraswamy's competence as art historian, but also to a high degree of personal and methodological discipline. It is also offer an important key to Kumaraswamy's approach in many ways of his more profound studies written in later years. He convincingly demonstrated in his work, The Origin of Buddha Image, that the evolution of Buddha image was of Indian origin and not based on Apollo type Gandhara Buddha as believed till then by the European and Indian scholars. In his milestone work, History of Indian and Indonesian Art, he examines in depth the influence of ancient East, of which India was an integral part in millennium BC. He propounded that this ancient world, extending from Mediterranean to the Ganga valleys, there prevailed a common type of culture which may well had a continuous history extending upward from the Stone Age. He changed the entire perception of Indian art by delineating the foreign elements in Indian art as cognates, rather borrowings. Thus, he withdrew India from its isolation and showed that a background to this existing art, there is a common early Asiatic art which has left its uppermost ripple marks alike on the shores of the Hellas, the extremes west of Ireland, Eurasia, Phoenicia, Egypt, India, and China. Kumaraswamy proved that Havel's earlier suggestion that the characterization of Ashokan capital as Bell capital was wrong. He also disposed of the so-called negative point, the lack of perspective in relief sculptures, by asserting that the depiction of the landscape is a mental picture, without any attempt at the representation of visual appearance as a whole. He systematically divided the generic relation of Mathura to Gandhara, Hellenistic art. Kumaraswamy considered the Gupta art having its outstanding characteristic in being of classical quality. He rejects the concept of revival of Brahminism in the Gupta period because, according to him, there was no evidence of any preceding lack of continuity in the development of Brahminic culture. He proclaimed that certainly there had never existed a Buddhist India that was not as a Hindu India. Thus, the Gupta period was culmination of Florence rather than a Renaissance. He regarded the Nataraja icon as a perfect visual of becoming adequate complement and contrast to Buddha type of pure being, and found excellent synthesis of science, religion, and art. Kumaraswamy translated the Nataraja image, as it were, and popularized in the whole world. Similarly, his iconographical approach is evident in Yakshas. A classic in the field, he collected enormous literary and archaeological data to prove inter alia that the Yakshas were intimately associated with the elements of bhakti and puja in Indian religion. The dance of Shiva and the origin of Buddha image are landmarks in the study of iconography in this subcontinent. Indeed, they have opened the portal of iconological research in India and abroad. In his Elements of Buddhist Iconography, he analyzed the well-known symbol like the Tree of Life, Earth Lotus, World Wheel, lotus throne, and other cognate symbols of Buddhist art and observed that all of them represent a universal Indian symbolism and a set of theological concepts. He regarded the early Indian art as essentially the continuation of mainly aniconic Vedic style and described the human figure of the Buddha as so called co natural with the Vedic Agni. His notion of Neo-Platonist view, which regards religion and art as name of one and the same experience, paved the way to equate art with religion. This concept helps to study the ancient and medieval mindset of artists and their artifacts. But certain critics had stressed this idea to the breaking point, which is not the intention of Kumaraswamy. His understanding of religion is quite holistic, not mere sectarian belief or dogma. Indeed, uh, Indian symbols have played a large part in her art. It was Kumaraswamy who first underlined the importance of this fact. He was first to realize the variables character of symbol which one meets with archaic relics like punch-marked coins. In support of this contention that the vocabulary of these symbols was used by different sectaries in sense of their own, may cite an illustration. A chakra, which in one place may represent a dharma chakra, in another setting, the Sudarshan emblem of Vishnu, which is a symbol of sun god. Most scholars before Kumaraswamy failed to realize this variable character of an identical symbols. For as for instance, Cunningham described the tree in railing symbol as the Bodhi tree and the wheel motif as the Buddhist Dharma chakra, confining them exclusively to Buddhism. Kumaraswamy's observation that the artist in ancient India was not interested in beauty but theme, and of the result was an object of beauty. It was from a state of mind which found consciousness expression, was an apt answer to misinformed and prejudiced Western critique of Indian art. Kumaraswamy indeed refuted Kipling's belief that the East cannot meet the West and proved on the contrary by his life and work that in such a meeting both can be gainer. In the intellectual operations in Indian art, the medieval theory of beauty, Vedic exemplarism, and on the Indian and traditional psychology or rather pneumatology, he tries to establish the art, science, and religion, the three best basic disciplines of culture and civilization, are not interrelated but also mutually interpenetrated. Primarily as a critic and as an art historian, Kumaraswamy achieved an integration of many disciplines. He wrote on philology, aesthetics, theology, rhetoric, linguistic, literary theories, social anthropology, and numismatic, in addition to sculpture, painting, and architecture and minor arts. And indeed, he seems to have set an example of interdisciplinary study, the importance of which has late been admitted in academic circle. Apart from his colossal scholarship, he was a master of several languages, ranging from Sanskrit and Tamil to Icelandic and medieval Latin, not to speak of modern language like French and German. I have tried humbly to expose what is the real perception of Kumaraswamy about tradition, art, and culture. I find no reason to call him traditionalist in modern use of term, conservative, revivalist, and anti-modern. This, I think, is chiefly due to lack of understanding of Kumaraswamy as a man, which again stems from non-reading of his works. Undeniable, most of his critics have read but a few of his well-known works like History of Indian and Indonesian Art and Introduction to Indian Art, and have not cared to go through other important works like Figure of Speech or Figure of Thought, Time and Eternity, etc. Besides, he has been criticized on the basis of stray passage and out of context statement picked up from his works. He was reportedly averse to modern art, but in reality, he was critical about the trend of the contemporary art, which he termed pathological exhibition. If he were thoroughly anti-modern, he would not have impressed by Picasso, or he was first Asian to recognize in Rabindranath Tagore, a modern painter. Kumaraswamy was Indian and universal at the same time. It was his noble aim to make the Indians conscious of their heritage and to dissuade them from being blind imitators of the West. His last message to his countrymen was, "Be yourself." As a universal man, he had an abiding faith in the undying human values and denounced barriers of all sorts, geographical, racial, or cultural. For instance, as regard different religions of the world, he believed that all religions have one source and that no man had right to say mine is the best or only true from of belief. As a scholar and as a man, Anand Kentish Coomaraswamy was outstanding. With an encyclopedic and transcendental vision, he authored his works in an inimitable style marked by lucidity and precision. If his works, judged by modern standards, suffers from any defect, it is largely due to the inadequacy of material he had to handle. Kumaraswamy exposed the true spirit of Indian art with particular reference to its nature, function, and value. In other words, we can say that Kumaraswamy rediscovered and re-evaluated Indian art in the hour when it was needed most. Now I will focus on the blueprint for the Kumaraswamy's collection. I suggest following points in this regard. We should institute A.K. Coomaraswamy Chair for the advanced study in Indian art and aesthetic at IGNCA, and also to explore and highlight the potentials of Indian art and culture, in particular religious diversity, as a resource for peace rather than a barrier. The annual seminar or conference on Coomaraswamy is also the need of the time, because a new generation of students are quite unfamiliar with his comprehensive contribution to the field of Indian art and culture. Third, the A.K. Coomaraswamy's collection at IGNCA has lots of potentials. First, the letters of Coomaraswamy should be categorized and published. Here I wish to add that mere publication of his correspondence is not sufficient, because it contained rich perception of Indian art and metaphysics. So I suggest that a work based on his letters should be published, which delineate those ideas which are scattered there. Similarly, cataloging and exhibition of his collection, especially his hand sketch, his collections of sculptures and painting, is also needed. The documentation and digitalization of Coomaraswamy's collection will make it easy to understand and access for general readers. There is also need for work which represent all his works in a single volume, because for general reader it is not possible to access his vast literature. And finally, I suggest for the documentary on the life and work of Coomaraswamy. This will create a general awareness about his contribution to Indian art.
होनहार बिरवान के हों थे चिकने पात। 12 साल की उम्र में जिनको विश्वविद्यालय खुद आके कहे कि आप एडमिशन ले लो, ये थे आनंद कुमारस्वामी. So he's a historical legendary figure which Dr. Tiwari has very succinctly briefed, given an overview and his contribution in a very capsule and compressed form, as this platform allows us. Thank you, Dr. Jha, for inviting him. I'm only officiating chair today because Dr. Gaud, our HOD, could not be present here. So I'm only a substitute. 3 points, and these are important as comes through your discourse. One, that Indian philosophy and scholarship is first found in West, and this is the only unique person who goes and challenges the West in their own setting, being born here. Sri Lanka was then part of the Asian subcontinent, Indian subcontinent. And this is remarkable for somebody in 1906, 1907, in that period of the turn of the century, when many, many world events were taking place. To go into the sphere of modernism and to challenge and question that and make a dent and stick to Indian aesthetics and Indian philosophy was no less a very great achievement. Thirdly, when we think of the discourse since Ananda Kumaraswamy ji, 4 दिन पहले उनका जन्मदिन हुआ 22 अगस्त को, and 9 September 1947, the day India became independent, just 3 weeks later he was gone. So the discourse post-independence has been built on the legacy left by Dr. Ananda Kumaraswamy, which is amazing because India had just become young and a new country, and to tackle with so many other issues, but to have a discourse which was so established in West. So I think अगर वो कुछ समय और टिकते तो हम ज़रूर उनको भारत रत्न के रूप में ही भारत में ही देखते, क्योंकि उनका काम इतना उनका प्रचलित हुआ और उन्होंने देश के लिए इतना किया विदेश रहते हुए भी. This occasionally happens that the best brains get their due and recognition and importance mostly abroad, especially because of academia. The standards set by the universities and the establishment and cultural institutions internationally, especially in Europe and America, are the benchmarks they become over a period of time, even for collections. Like you mentioned, the collection, very rightly so. Dr. Jha is more informed about what all he is in charge of, a lot of collections, and how to make sense of it for young India. Because जितना भी हम लोग ने काम किया है पिछले 100 सालों में, वो अगली पीढ़ी के लिए है. ये धरोहर आगे ही जानी है. So it is very important that from this point we make a conscious effort, which is why his biggest word I picked today from you was multidisciplinary and interdisciplinary, which is what IGNC is about. IGNC's whole vision, originally as encapsulated by the founding fathers and mothers, was intra and interdisciplinary, which meant all aspects of Indian culture, traditions, its historicity, its vast complex nature and layers were taken into consideration and put forward in a capsule form. We are very happy some of you could attend this morning session. I'm sure there'll be a lot more over a period of time. Your suggestions are very welcome. I'm sure and confident at an appropriate time by the appropriate board, such can be taken forward. Manglam Bhava. Thank you.